Unit conversions. Now you may have seen before some unit conversions with the metric system going from things like centimeters to meters. In that circumstance, all we have to do is just move the decimal point because it's all on a base 10. But what if we have a conversion that is not so simple, not on base 10? For example, how many inches are in a mile? Well, we got a couple different methods on how to do that.
So we're going to convert 3,200 centimeters to meters. So we start out with our conversion and we have a ratio that we're going to multiply by it. We got 3,200 centimeters. So the first thing we need to do is figure out where the units go for each one of the units that we're going to convert from and convert to. Now, the interesting thing here is that units can cancel just like numbers cancel. So you have centimeters here, then that means we're going to put centimeters on the bottom. And then when we're converting from centimeters to meters, that means we got to put meters on top. So in order to figure out the numbers, we have the units. The units are here. Notice that's going to be the first thing we put in. And now we're going to figure out what numbers to put here. So if you have your equation sheet, you should notice that there's a metric system here where centimeters, centi, means 10 to the negative second. And then base units is 10 to the 0. So there's no prefix on this. So it's going to be 10 to the 0 power. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the difference in power between these two. We can see that 0 minus a negative 2 is going to give me 2. And what that does is that's going to help me determine how many zeros are going to go with the 10 to the power in order to figure out what numbers go in each of these blanks. So 10 to the second power is going to be 100. So we're going to take 100 and we're going to put it either in the top or the bottom. Now the question is, which one is it going to go to? Is it going to go to the base or is it going to go to the centi? Well, whichever one is the smaller unit is going to get the bigger number. So since centi is smaller than the base unit, then that means that centi is going to get the 100 and then meters is going to get the 1. So that's going to be our conversion. That gets us to where we need to go. So we go ahead and multiply by everything on the top. We divide by everything on the bottom. So that's going to be 3,200 times 1 divided by 100. You'll notice that centimeters is going to cancel, leaves us with meters, which is the unit that we want. And then we go ahead and plug that in our calculator. We get 32 meters. So a couple things to notice here is first off that the old units will cancel and the new units are going to be put into the other part of the fraction. So here we have centimeters, and to cancel it we got to divide by centimeters, and then we got meters in the other part here. There are going to be some conversions where we actually have a conversion in the bottom in the denominator, and we're going to have to put it into the numerator in order to cancel it out. The second thing to notice is also that the numerator and the denominator must be equal to each other. So the 1 meter and 100 centimeters have to be equal to each other in order for this conversion to work. For this next conversion, we're going to convert 76 inches to centimeters. You can see here that 1 inch is going to be equal to 2.54 centimeters. So we set up our ratio where we have inches. We're going to put inches in the denominator, and we got to convert to our new unit, and it's going to be in centimeters. So inches in the numerator, or inches in the denominator to cancel with inches here, and then centimeters here. Notice again, we're putting the units here. We're not putting the numbers there yet. But then we see that 1 inch is going to be equal to 2.54 centimeters. So that's where we put the numbers. The 1 goes with the inch, and then the 2.54 goes with the centimeters. Now we can go ahead and multiply the top, divide by the bottom. The units are going to cancel, leave me with centimeters, and we get a total of 193 centimeters. Next, let's convert 375 centimeters to inches. So we're going to set up the same thing, do a ratio. But this time we're going to have centimeters on the bottom because we got to cancel out centimeters. Notice that centimeters is going to cancel. We're going to convert to inches, and then the inches, again, we have the same ratio here where 1 inch is going to be equal to 2.54 centimeters. So we got 1 in the numerator and 2.54 in the denominator, so we can make those equal to each other. Then we're going to cancel our centimeters. We multiply everything on top, 375 times 1. And then we divide by everything on the bottom, 2.54, and that gives us 148 inches. Next, let's do a little bit more conversions with different units. For example, we got days, 250 days in seconds. How do we convert from days to seconds? Well, we can't go straight from days to seconds because I don't know how many seconds are in a day. But what I can do is I can set up a ratio and go to something in between. So days I can actually convert to hours. And I know how many days are in an hour, how many hours in a day. Make sure that when you put the numbers here that the two measurements are going to be equal to each other. So don't put 24 days equals 1 hour. That doesn't make sense. So we got 24 hours equals 1 day. Now we're not quite to seconds yet, so we're going to do another ratio. I don't know how many seconds are in an hour, so I'm going to convert to something in between. I'm going to convert to minutes. So again, hours in the denominator, cancel with hours here, convert to minutes. And I know that there are 60 minutes in 1 hour. So remember, the numerator and the denominator have to be equal to each other. And then one more conversion in order to get it to seconds. We go from minutes to seconds. I know there's 60 minutes in 1 second. All right, so now we look at everything on top and go ahead and multiply all those together. We divide by everything in the bottom, so it's 250 times 24 times 60 times 60 divided by 1, divided by 1, divided by 1, and that gives us 21,600,000 seconds, and we put that in scientific notation to be 2.16 times 10 to the 7th seconds. This next conversion, we're going to do 12,000 feet, and we're going to convert that to kilometers. So you see a couple of ratios here that we have, miles to feet and then inches to centimeters. So we start with feet, and we're going to go over to kilometers. So the easiest way to do this is to start from feet to go over to inches. So we have feet in the denominator in order to cancel with that, and we're going to go to inches. Feet. How many feet are in an inch? How many inches are in a feet? We know that 12 inches equals 1 foot. So that's where the 1 goes in the denominator and 12 in the numerator. Next, we are going to convert inches over to centimeters. So inches to centimeters, 1 inch is 2.54 centimeters. Now we need to get from centimeters over to kilometers. From centimeters to kilometers, we're going to do this conversion again where we try to figure out how many 10 to what power that we're going to put a number 1 up either up here or down here, and then the other 10 to the power in the other place. So we got to look at the difference in power. We know that kilo is 10 to the third, and centi is 10 to the negative second. If we take the difference in power, that's 3 minus a negative 2, and that gives me 5. So that gives me 100,000 because that is 5 zeros. So then which one of these two is going to get the 100,000? Well, it's going to be the one with the smaller unit. So the smaller unit gets the bigger number. Smaller unit gets the bigger number. So centi, you can see here, is smaller than the kilo because 10 to the third is much bigger than 10 to the negative second. So the centi gets the 100,000. Now we multiply everything on top, divide by everything on the bottom, and we're going to get our total is going to be 3.66 kilometers. This next conversion, we're going to go from centimeters per second to kilometers per hour. So we start with 18,000 centimeters per second. Now we got 2 separate units, centimeters and seconds. So what we have to do is we have to pick one of them to convert. Let's go ahead and do centimeters to kilometers first. So from centimeters to kilometers, again, we do our difference in power. So kilometers is 10 to the third, centi is 10 to the negative second. The difference in power is 5, so it's going to be 100,000. So it's going to be 100,000 centimeters because, again, centi is the smaller unit, so it gets the bigger number. So 1 kilometer to 100,000 centimeters. Then we're going to convert seconds now because we got centimeters to kilometers, so that part is already converted. Now we need to go from seconds to hours. But I can't go seconds straight to hours because I don't know what seconds is to hours, but I can go seconds to minutes. So 60 seconds in 1 minute, so we make sure that the numbers are equal to each other. The measurements is 60 seconds in 1 minute, and don't confuse that with 1 second equals 60 minutes because that doesn't make sense. Now we need to convert minutes over to hours, and we know that 60 minutes is going to be equal to 1 hour. Now that we have everything canceled, centimeter is going to cancel with centimeter, and that leaves kilometers in the numerator. Seconds cancels with seconds. Notice that seconds is actually in the numerator this time rather than the denominator. And the reason for that is because that seconds was already in the denominator here, so to cancel it, we had to put it in the numerator. And then we have in the denominator minutes, and then minutes goes in the numerator here, and then hours in the denominator here, so that we can cancel the minutes and leave hours in the denominator, which is where we want it in our conversion. So let's go ahead and multiply everything on top. 18,000 times 1 times 60 times 60 divided by 100,000 divided by 1 divided by 1. That gives me a total of 648 kilometers per hour. So when we convert within the metric system, we can actually use a little bit of a shortcut. So you can see here that we're going to be converting from kilograms to micrograms. Now the fact that we're using grams really doesn't matter. We could be using meters or liters or seconds or anything like that. Really we're just looking at the prefix. So the prefix for kilo actually has a power, 10 to some power, and micro has a 10 to a power as well. So kilo has a 10 to the power of 3, and then micro has a 10 to the power of -6. So the next question we need to ask is, what is the difference in power? So if you look at -3, or I'm sorry, if you look at 3 and -6, the difference in power is going to be 9. So we have 10 to the third minus 10 to the sixth, or 3 minus 6, that gives me -9, but really 9 is what we're looking at. But we need to figure out which way we're going to be moving the decimal point. So the 9 tells us that we are going to move the decimal point, but we need to figure out which way we're going to be moving. Well, if you look at the units are going to be going from bigger units to smaller units. So 10 to the third to 10 to the -6, that's getting smaller, which means the number has to get bigger. So in order for the number to get bigger, we got to move the decimal point to the right. In order for the number to get bigger, we have to move it to the right. All right, so moving it to the right, see that it's going to go 9 spaces to the right, and any space that we go over that doesn't have a number there, we're actually going to fill it in with a 0. Now all the zeros out front are not significant. If you consider which zeros are significant and not, we see the ones that are on the left, those are not going to be significant. So we rewrite the number with that digit, that 0 in that empty spot, and we get 3950 micrograms. So that equals the 0.00000395 kilograms. In the next example, we have 40,900 nanometers we're converting to centimeters. So in converting this, we have to figure out what prefix nano, 10 to what power, then centi, what 10 to what power there. We see that nano is going to be 10 to the -9th, centi is going to be 10 to the -2nd. So if we look at the difference in power there, we could see that the difference in power is going to be 7. So we're going to move the decimal point 7 spaces. But which way? Well, if we look at nano to centi, we're going to go from a smaller unit to a bigger unit. So since the units are getting bigger, then that means the number has to get smaller. So if the number gets smaller, the way we do that is we're going to have to move the decimal point to the left. All right, so we're going to move it 7 spaces to the left. And you see that 7 spaces to the left will actually give me 2 empty spaces here. So once we place that decimal point out front, we have 0.00409, and then the 2 zeros in the back, those are insignificant because the decimal point was absent. So this is going to be our answer, 0.00409 centimeters, and that's going to be equal to that 40,900 nanometers.